the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima and Carlo. On today's show, we will review a massive weekend of Serie A matches. Stefan de Vrij scored 4 minutes into injury time for Inter to deny Milan in a dramatic Milan derby. Napoli blew their chance to open up a lead in the Scudetto race as Angelino also scored deep into injury time to secure a draw for Roma. Randal Kolo Muani possibly saved Thiago Motta's job as Juventus launch a second half comeback to beat Empoli from behind. Atalanta's poor Serie A form in 2025 continues, while Fiorentina and Bologna keep up their top four chances with victories. It's deadline day today on Monday, so we will be doing a winners and losers of the January transfer window for Serie A. Serie A clubs and players and all related, and we also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend's Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. We provide the link in the description. For all of you who listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. Also subscribe to us on YouTube as well. All of that really helps us to do more quality content for you guys. You can also become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@ItaFootPod for more details. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with the Milan derby, a dramatic Milan derby. Stefan de Vrij equalising 4 minutes into injury time after Milan had taken the lead before half-time through Reinders, and the game finishes 1-1. Incredible game, dramatic game. Let's talk about this first from the Inter point of view, Nima. It's incredible because if you look at the both games, injury time has played a huge part in this Scudetto race because there's a 3-point swing in injury time between De Vrij's equaliser and Angelino's equaliser. So, it's a huge goal for Inter, that De Vrij equaliser.
It's huge for them in the sense that they avoid a third consecutive defeat, and it's kind of been these Milan derbies this season have been very similar in stature in many ways, and how the games played out. The first one in September, Inter didn't turn up. Milan were very disciplined, played deep, and you could say to some extent that's kind of what happened in Saudi Arabia as well. They've all looked the same, these games, despite the fact that they've had two different managers in charge of Milan conducting them. And it's frustrated Inter. It's obvious that it's gotten under their skins. It's an Inter who turn up after that fantastic performance and that attitude, above all, the attitude and tempo and cohesive pressing and everything they did so well against Monaco, turn up to game against Milan where they did none of that. They didn't play at that capacity at all. In fact, they played decently in the first half, but as Simone Inzaghi so correctly said, they lacked profondità in attacco, which means they lacked that depth or bite in attack. And then in the second half, they were static for large parts of it. It's not difficult to defend against a team that passes sideways without moving, and that's what Inter did for large parts of that half. And this is a little bit a continuation of what we've seen Inter do in the Milan derby this season. I think even the most ardent Milan fan will admit that Inter were better than Milan, even playing at 60-65% in this game. The simply the way that they are able to take over games, even when not playing well. They hit the post 3 times, had 3 goals disallowed, and that's based on an Inter that wasn't concentrated, that wasn't switched on. Those 2 offsides, especially, are a perfect example of that. That Barella and Lautaro, in particular, who are the leaders of this Inter, when they can't be so cool as to time their runs and stupidly run into offside, when they just needed to hold off for a second, and they're onside, that tells me that Milan have rattled them. It's clear that there is a psychological issue there, and that goal is very important to break that cycle. They get rewarded for the chance creation, because it would have been a very difficult loss to take after you create that many chances and you hit the woodwork 3 times. But the fact of the matter remains that this season, Inter lack consistency in their performances. And this season overall reminds me a lot of Inzaghi's first season in charge. I say remind, not say identical, but reminds me, in the sense that you have a game postponed due to something that was out of Inter's hand. That time was Bologna, this time is Fiorentina. You play twice against Milan, you only pick up 1 point. And in one of those games, you are so much better. You squander a win. You draw from the jaws of victory. You draw away to a team that's going to get relegated. Then it was Genoa. This time it's Monza. You can't impose yourself. you miss penalties against Napoli at home this season, against Atalanta at home that season in a draw. There's a lot of similarities. But in the lack of consistency of performances, and that's why what I don't like about this Inter this season. There's not this kind of inevitability about them that we saw last season in the Serie A is just not there, and I think we can say that on the 3rd of February after 33 games having watched them. And the reason for that is that the depth, just like then, is there is no depth in midfield. You don't control games in midfield. Um, you are unable to create chances by dominating the midfield like you did last season, and just like that season as well, because then you had Vecino and Gagliardini. This season you have Aslani and Fratesi, and they don't really work in this system. They work on one-off games, but they don't work overall, and that hinders you, because Çalhanoğlu was not fully fit. He lacked match tempo. He was decent. He was important, but he loses the ball for that goal, which happens. But again, you can't just rely on 3 starters, and that's the main thing. And to me, this was like a little microcosm of why I don't think Inter will win the Scudetto. I'm looking at the games from here until the end for Napoli and Inter. I'm counting on Inter to reach the semi-final of the Coppa Italia as well as the quarter-final of the Champions League. And I look at the number of games and who the opposition is, and I see this, despite Napoli dropping a point late to Roma, that this is a Scudetto that Antonio Conte will win now, because the Inter needed that boost that a derby win gives them, and they're 0 for 3. And if I look at the games against Juve, if I look at the home games against Juve and Napoli, and I look against one of, regardless of which one you count as a home game, I see 3 points out of 9 where it should have been 9. These direct encounters last season, Inter would have won all of these 3 games. In the last 15 minutes to Juve, they piss away a 2-goal lead. They miss a penalty against Napoli. And in this game, they create, even in playing at 60-70% of their capacity, they create more than enough chances to win, but they just can't do it. That lack of consistency suggests to me this isn't a Scudetto winning team.
I think there's a long way to go, and we'll talk about Napoli and the Scudetto race when we get to their game. But I think in this game in particular, I think Inter's weakness was also their strength, or vice versa, and that's how I look at this game, because Inter did hit the post 3 times. They did have 3 goals disallowed, so fine margins on all of those. But at the same time, until the latter stages of this game, when they were piling on the pressure, they actually struggled to create from open play. And that's a strength as well as a weakness, because, and I'll explain why. Because all of their chances basically came from set pieces, and if they weren't set pieces, they were crosses. And that's how they scored the goal at the end as well, which is a strength. But it's also it's also a little bit concerning as well how they really struggled to create in open play, and that credit also goes to Milan and Conceicao for the way they set up and how good they were defensively, which we'll come to. But that's also a strength in the sense that, as you said, and this is what makes Inter the best team in Serie A, whether they win the Scudetto or not. And so they're such a complete team, even when they're not playing well, even when they're struggling to create in open play, and the play is slow from side to side, as you said, and they look comfortable, the opposition defending them. They still create a lot of chances and they still score goals because they can force goals. They are so strong aerially, crosses into the box. They're monsters aerially, whether it's from set pieces, whether it's from crosses from open play. And that's what makes them such a special team. If you compare that to Milan, if you compare that certainly to Juventus, who have no aerial threat at all in their game, I think Napoli do, and that's probably why they're going head to head. You have to be able to score goals and create chances from different ways. You can't always create from playing pretty football, from pass and move, through balls, through cutbacks, all this kind of stuff. Sometimes you just have to force goals, and that is putting crosses in and having players that are good in the air and that is what makes Inter. That's what got Inter a point in this game, and they're so good in that side of the game, and they never say die. They're so strong mentally as well. They never gave up. Most teams after hitting the woodwork post 3 times would have thought, well, it's just not our day today. And there's that chance at the end as well when Magnon makes a fantastic save from Dumfries, already deep into injury time. You miss that one and you think, well, this is definitely not Inter's day. They still keep going and they force a goal right at the end, and it is a deserved equaliser. Inter did not deserve to lose this game. So it's a weird one. It's a weird one because yes, they did struggle from open play, but then they still created all these chances from crosses and set pieces. So it's a strange one, but I think that it's a different dynamic. Yes, it's Inter would have wanted to win this game, but when you equalise that far into injury time, and you saw the way they celebrated it, that does definitely give you I would see this mentally. That's definitely more. That will give Inter more going forward than if it had been the other way around. If they'd have been in the lead and then gave up a goal or a late goal. So I think Inter will still take a lot from this, especially as they might play Milan in the Champions League as well. There's a very big chance that they'll meet them in the last 16. So yeah.
I mean, the thing is that if they do play Milan in the last 16, Simone Inzaghi has to adapt now, because you can't, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results, as Einstein put it. You know that you're better than Milan. So why on earth do you not, why do you give them why do you play into their hands? Give Milan the ball. Play deep. Play like against Arsenal and City. Here's the ball. You do something with it. We're going to counterattack. Do you understand? I don't understand why Inter do this and fall into Milan's trap time and time and time again and gift away points like this. Sometimes you just have to play a way that maybe doesn't suit you, or you don't want to do it the way you do it. You play in a way, you just got to treat it like a cup final sometimes, some games. And he doesn't, 3 derbies this season, he hasn't done that. And that's very, very frustrating to watch. And so that's something that he needs to understand. I mean, I think Milan, we'll get to Milan. They have to, every team plays according to their resources and try to get the best results they can. But I need, from an Inter perspective, Inzaghi needs to just simply understand that some games sometimes, just like when you play Arsenal, just like when you play City, you do that too in Italy, and there's no shame in that. There's no, there's nothing wrong with that. You have to get the result.
I think the two last points I want to make on Inter before we move on to Milan, from the negative point of view. First of all, I thought tactically, until probably the last 20 minutes, half an hour, I thought Conceicao got the better of Inzaghi on a couple of, well, one in particular tactical note, and that is Conceicao went 4-4-2, well, in the first half anyway, and then he went more 4-5-1 second half. And Inzaghi, and you could see him really shouting the touchline. He was frustrated. He couldn't seem to get he couldn't work out what to do and couldn't get his players. And his players were frustrated by this as well. That Milan were getting 2-on-1 down the flanks, and that's where the goal came from. Even though it was a mistake from Sommer, they were 2-on-1 because this is the weakness of any 3-5-2 system. It's not rocket science. You have one wing back going up the flank, and if a team plays a 4-4-2 or even a 4-3-3, that's a well thought out 4-3-3, you're going to have 2-on-1 on the wing back. And in particular in the first half, and this was definitely a Conceicao plan. They were going 2-on-1 down both flanks, but especially down Inter's right on the left, and that's where the goal came from. They overloaded and they scored. So that's just something just to bear in mind going forward. And secondly, we saw the not that any more proof was needed, but the fact that Inter are chasing the game, they're a goal down, and Inzaghi brings on 5 of his subs, and not a single one of those 5 subs that comes on is an attacker. Well, that just underlines again what I've been saying, for 18 months, that Inter's depth in attack is well, it's non-existent, and it's got to the point now where you're chasing a game and you're behind, and Inzaghi doesn't even trust any of the attackers to bring on in a game, like this.
I look at those subs, and the reason that he brings on Pavard, Carlos Augusto, Zielinski, Fratesi, and Zalewski is because he wants to control the midfield. He wants to do exactly those things because Di Marco failed. One of the things that, yes, it's true, they created 2-on-1s, but one of the ways to play past that is when you have Çalhanoğlu playing those long diagonal first-time balls, and you can run past them using, playing behind the Milan backline, which Inter did time and time again in the first half. But in those important moments, when you've created those, when you're in behind, the final pass, the final touch was awful. Di Marco in particular had a very bad game yesterday. And, Barella, who usually is the one pushing Inter forward, was a bit timid in decisive situations. And again, it just underlines when after Milan scored their goal that Inter got a little bit anxious. They're anxious by Milan, and that's not a good thing. When Bisek comes on, when Augusto comes on, when Zielinski comes on, they regain that control which they had not had until that point. And they're able to create that pressure because they have, even though I think Zielinski didn't exactly have the most fantastic performance either, but he gave them what they needed and stability in midfield. And I got to say, Zalewski in particular, I really like this transfer because I know he has his weaknesses defensively, but in a team, as you said, that is so dominant aerially, if you can have a player who knows how to deliver crosses in that find his teammates, you have an extra weapon. And you saw that Dumfries' header in the post, that was a Zalewski cross. Zalewski's assist for the equalizer. Like his positioning and his interpretation of that wing back role in this system will be very useful to Inzaghi. And I think Inzaghi will be able to, if Inzaghi can or not be able to, I think if he's able to improve Zalewski defensively, this is a good signing. And he will offer more than Tejan Buchanan did, who I think his career at Inter pretty much ended after he broke his leg last summer. So that's the positive from it. And I think the substitutions Inzaghi did were spot on. I wouldn't have brought on an attacker in that situation because I wanted to have control. which they were unable to have for large parts of that game. So to me, those are the main things to take away.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things I wanted to say on the penalty, which is the Pavlovic one, not Theo. Yes, of course, it's a penalty. Everyone sees that it's a Pavlovic trips Thuram. That's not really the point. But the fact that Inzaghi went out and said what he said is very important from a football political point of view, because this is Italy. You have to speak out. If you don't, they screw you over. Conte has meltdowns over not getting throw-ins, and as such, nobody messes with him, regardless of what team he's in. Inzaghi has taken the gentleman's approach for 4 years. Yesterday, he had enough. I think that's a good thing. You have to put pressure on them and basically say, no, I'm not accepting this. I'm defending my club. I'm defending my players. I'm defending my team. You do better. So I'm glad he did that. But I don't care about that penalty. And I'll tell you why I don't care. Because, like I said, when you don't play, if you turn up to 3 derbies and you're unable to play at 90% of your capacity, I don't care about penalties not being given. That's on you. And Inter, who plays at 65-70% of their capacity, hits the post 3 times, scores 3 offside, 3 goals, has 3 goals disallowed. That's an Inter that, if they play at their capacity, beat Milan comfortably. So for me, and the fact that they have 3 out of 9 points against direct rivals, 6 points they threw away, that's not because of the referees. So it's like separate discussions here. Yes, that's a penalty. Yes, it's a mistake. VAR should have intervened. There's no doubt about that. But I don't want to listen, and I'm glad that Inzaghi pointed it out, because it's been a little bit too many incidents now. But regardless, you should be the masters of your own destiny. You're that good. And the fact that you're not is not the referee's fault. That's on you.
No, yeah, I hear you. I mean, listen, it is a penalty. The reason why they haven't given the penalty, I mean, there is no excuse for not giving it. It's a clear trip. Is because Teo's come through and cleared it, and I reckon that they probably looked at the Teo tackle rather than the
Well, that's a
Pavlovic tackle.
mistake. That's
Yeah,
a mistake.
it's a mistake. Listen,
Equally, I got to say before.
No, I want to say that the referees had a terrible weekend this weekend. Not just this one. Juventus's first goal they conceded is absolutely ridiculous as well. There's a player standing right in front of.
How is that not offside?
It's
I
ridiculous.
don't understand that.
It's mad, isn't it? It's absolutely insane.
I've watched that from so many angles, and I'm like, that is definitely he's literally in front of Park, in front of the goalkeeper.
Mad. And also, I thought the yellow card given
to Politano was a disgrace.
Politano was ridiculous as
That's
well.
That's a penalty. That's not even okay. He exaggerates.
It's more. There's more debate from, because you know my view on penalties. I don't like that he touches him on the let's just get the penalties out of the way now, so we don't have to talk about them anymore. The Politano one, he goes he touches his foot with a very light touch, and he also touches his knee. He is sort of off balance though when he does it. So it's one of those where I think there's at least a debate there. Is there enough contact? There is definite contact on the knee and on the foot, but is there enough contact? Like I don't see that as scandalous. I think that's one that could be given, that could not be given. What is scandalous though is he gets a yellow card. I mean,
he exaggerates the impact. He exaggerates the impact. I think everyone sees that, but it's definitely not a yellow card for diving. It's embarrassing, and for me, that's a penalty. I think Napoli should have had a penalty there. When I was watching that, I was like, yeah, VAR is going to intervene, and they didn't. And they've had a bad weekend, so yeah, it's frustrating from an Inter perspective to have watched that.
But I do disagree with you. Like, I don't think it's ever an excuse to say, "Oh, we should have won anyway," because these kind of incidents do change games. You know, if Inter scored that penalty, there's enough time for them to go on and win the game. You know, like, I get you. You're right, but at the same time, like, there's never an excuse for because, you know, especially in tight games, you know, these kind of incidents to decide. And I'll include the Napoli one there. You say you think it's a penalty. I'd say it maybe could have gone either way. But again, you know, these are the kind of incidents that decide games, decide championships. You know, so there's never an excuse really for the referee to say, "Oh, but we missed all these chances."
I understand. I agree with that. But I'm talking about a separate point. The separate point is it's inexcusable to turn up to a derby and not be 100%. And if you do it 3 times in a season, I don't know what to tell you, because that's not on the referees. but it doesn't change the fact that the referee's made a mistake. Like, again,
Yeah,
these are
I
cyclical.
agree. We're in agreement. Let's move on to Milan point of view. So Milan, so close, so close. They'll obviously be gutted not to win. Also because for all of Inter's you know merit in getting that equalizer, at the end of the day, Jimenez makes that mistake on the clearance. It's a bad clearance. If he clears his line properly, they don't get the chance to put that cross in and score. So you know it's first of all from their point of view, they made a mistake. Even if it was a mini mistake, it's a mistake, and they were punished. But I think overall, if you look at the overall game, I think Milan have to take the positives. We've been criticising Milan, I have in particular, all season for saying this Milan lacks team qualities. They don't play as a team. And that, team qualities, what are team qualities? Well, first of all, you want to see the spirit of a team playing as a collective, with a spirit. And we saw that. They were all up for it. The work rate of all the players was great. I mean, Abraham, he was exhausted when he came off. He run into the ground. So many of them were non-stop running. Musa, Pulisic. I mean, they ran. They matched Inter physically, maybe not aerially because I think Inter are on another level, but physically, they really did. I mean, Pavlovic, even though he got lucky, obviously with the penalty, I mean, I think he symbolised it. He's become almost a symbol of what Conceicao wants. I thought Pavlovic and Tomori were both really, really great. Kyle Walker, I thought had a really, really good debut. He symbolises kind of what Milan need to bring in that respect. But they also showed tactical discipline in this game, something that's been completely lacking this season, especially from a defensive point of view. They were compact, they were united. They played as units, especially in defence, but all over the field they were a unit. Inter didn't have those spaces to get in behind them, to have that profundità, like you said, because Milan didn't give them those spaces. I thought they were great, and I thought tactically, until the latter stages, what Conceicao brought was working. I mentioned it before. He went 4-4-2 in the first half. It was kind of 4-4-2/4-3-3, but it was more of a 4-4-2, and they created these 2-on-1s down the flanks when they attacked, and Milan and Inter didn't have the answer for it. As I said before, that Inter didn't know what to do to counteract it. Would Pavard come out, which he often did, and he had to make a couple of brilliant last gasp tackles, Pavard actually, otherwise Milan would have been in. But they didn't know what to do to stop it, and that was working. The second half, they went more to a 4-5-1, and I'm a little bit critical on Conte's stuff. I think he went a little bit too defensive, and he gave, as much as you say that the subs changed it, I think also Milan probably gave Inter a little bit too much of the initiative, if we're looking at it from Milan's point of view. But in terms of what we can take positively from this game, I think we saw a team. We saw a team, and yes, Inter are man for man are better. But Milan almost won this game because they played as a team, and defensively as well. I thought they were excellent. They've been a shambles all season, really, defensively. As recently as the Dinamo Zagreb game a few days earlier. As I said before, they conceded very, very little, almost nothing from open play until really those last kind of 5 to 10 minutes. All the chances were from set pieces. If they weren't from set pieces, they were from crosses. They never got opened up, and that's a credit to Conceicao. It's a credit to the defence. If they play like this, compact, then yeah, they can finish. They can have a good, really, positive second half of the season.
No, I agree. I think the fact that they are a team, Conceicao doesn't allow people not to be a team. When they aren't, he does what he did to the players that prevent the team being a team, like Calabria, like Morata. They're no longer there. That's just how he operates. Like I said last week, the outburst was more than just a spur of the moment. He knows exactly what he's doing. And within a week, Calabria is out. Morata is out. That's just Conceicao. This is how he operates. This is how he stamps things out. And Milan will thank him for it. Because he doesn't allow disruptive behavior in a dressing room. He sees that as almost like a virus, and he wants to nip that in the bud. And well, now he's got 2 players out that he didn't feel was working for him, that were a root cause to whatever issue it was. And he's got players there that will allow him to get this team working as a team. Everyone fighting to the last drop of sweat. That's how he builds his teams. That's how he builds a unit. And you saw that in the derby, despite a very turbulent week. Milan turn up to this derby very organized, very disciplined, solid, and dying for one another. And that's what you want to see from your club, from your team that you support. And he was, after the game, he said, "Look, a draw is probably, that's the fair result overall, but it does annoy us that we didn't win at the end, that we conceded that goal at the end." And I think that that goes to show the kind of character he is. He can't accept things. He needs to win. He's addicted to winning. He has an insane winning mentality.
He does. But if I just stop you on Conceicao, because I thought some of his quotes were quite interesting, because there has been some murmurings in the last few days in the media from some decent sources as well. So I don't think that there isn't some smoke here. And that is that some of the players are not happy with Conceicao's methods. They name 3 in particular. Those are Morata, who they say actually left partly for this reason. Yeah. Morata, Pulisic, and Teo Hernandez are unhappy with Conceicao's methods. I'm not sure exactly what it is they're unhappy about. Is it the training methods that are too severe? Is it his personality, the way that he talks and treats the players, because he is so demanding? And so, I mean, that's just something, just to keep an eye on, because it is important, and maybe it's part of the personalities of the player. I would say with Morata and Teo, I'd be pretty sure. We know Morata is a very sensitive person. He has suffered from depression, and he probably doesn't quite like managers that are a bit tough like that. Maybe that's part of it. Teo, I think, is probably because he's just more laid back and doesn't like to sweat and struggle. Maybe that's partly it. I don't know, but it's just something to keep an eye on, because again, this is an issue that we've had with Milan for a long time now, that these players haven't wanted to put in the hard graft, and they've lacked that side of things. We saw it in this game, so that people will say, well, they did it in this game, so that's all that really matters. But it's interesting, because we know what Conceicao's like, we know what he wants, we know what he demands, and but you'll have to have the players on his side to be able to do that. Otherwise, once the results start going away from you, if they start going away from you, then it can unravel very, very quickly. So yeah, we'll see.
The thing is, I think that he's, Milan have made it clear that they're gonna, everyone's under exam, as they always are. Everyone has to always deliver, as is the case at Inter, Milan, Juve, right, including Conceicao. But I think Milan have been very clear here. They've backed their manager, and they have to back their manager at this point. They can't second guess him. But also I think Conceicao's too clever and shrewd diplomatically and football politically to allow this to get out of hand. I think the way that he's targeted Calabria and Morata was a very clear message, and now they're both gone. It's that simple. I think from now on, you'll see he'll try to be the more charming man because he's a very charismatic person. I think he'll be much more charismatic. He'll be much more, the charismatic and charming Conceicao that builds a team and a unit around this. Now that the transfer window's over, now that he's got players that he likes, or more players that are suited to his style of football and what he wants them to do. And nothing. I think as the results come, he will bring more. Like, the group will accept him more. I got to be honest with you. I'm not too happy about these rumors and then they name players like that. I just find it a bit well, you're not going to name the source because you're not going to out your source. So the thing just becomes a little bit not serious, if you know what I mean. He's not happy. She's not happy. Well, how do unless you come out with something tangible, I think it's nonsense reporting, really. Because it's just, then the player, if the players come out and deny it, then they kind of validate this nonsense. If they don't, then everyone says, see,
Well, like I said, all I can say is,
it's like,
based on this performance, they were definitely playing. So
yeah,
that's all. That's what we can
yeah.
say. But yeah, Morata leaving definitely.
I mean, Morata and
Morata
Calabria.
leaving is definitely a very, very interesting one.
No, Morata and Calabria is obvious. Those he made a point out of singling those two out, and they're both out. So that's fair enough. But
Final point on. Well, first of all, yeah, Reinders scores again. I think he's been Milan's best player
agreed.
this season. Scored, had another shot tipped over. Maybe should have done better with a chance in the second half when he shot straight at the keeper. So yeah, fantastic again. The top four is going to be tight between Juventus and Milan. There's no doubt about that. So I think it's not 2 points dropped. It's not 1 point gained. It's kind of neither one nor the other kind of thing. It's going to be tight. But the only other thing is kind of Milan, and the equalizer doesn't change us. Milan in the big games this season have actually been pretty good. They record in the big games. I mean, like you said, they've beaten Inter twice, and now they've drawn with Inter. They've beaten Juventus in the Super Cup. Okay, they lost in the league earlier this month. They drew the other game against Juventus earlier in the season. They lost to Napoli, but they actually played well in that game. They beat Real Madrid, of course, in the Champions League. So in the big games this season, they've actually done better than probably most of the other Serie A teams. Actually, top Serie A teams, they've probably got maybe one of the better, if not the best, record out of the big teams in Serie A in the head-to-head. So it's a strange one that they just lacking consistency and seem to do worse against the small teams. I think there probably is a tactical element to that as well, in that when teams open up against them and they can play on the counter attack, they get it gets the best out of the likes of Teo and Rafael Leao and Reinders and some of the others who are so good, sort of quick and so surging into space, and it opens up the gaps for them. Maybe it is partly that, and they struggle against teams that sit deep and they don't have the spaces to play into, and then they're defensively picked apart. So yeah, that's something that obviously now they need to sort out going forward, because that's what's needed if they're going to get in the top four and to make this season not a failure. So that's the last point I wanted to make. But let's move on, shall we, to Roma Napoli, which was played after this 1-1 draw in the Milan derby, and Napoli had a great chance to really make a big Scudetto blow against Inter and open up a gap of 5 points, but Inter obviously would have had the game in hand, and it looked like they were going to do that. They were 1-0 up, and they concede a goal deep into injury time from Angelino, and they draw. And so it's kind of where we were. And if Inter win the game in hand against Fiorentina, which is this midweek, then they're level. They're level at the top. So as I said before, yeah, a 3-point swing with injury time goals in both games. It could have been 6 points clear with the game in hand, and then it was going to be at least 5, and now it's only 3. So I think from Napoli's point of view, they'll definitely be gutted for that. Conte, you could see his frustration at the end. I've praised Conte a lot, and I think he's done an incredible job. And I think if he wins the Scudetto with this squad, amazing. But I do think in this game, I am a little bit critical. I think that they didn't push enough for the second goal, and they went too deep. They went too early. Too early. They went too deep, just holding out the lead, and they invited cross after cross after cross into the box, and eventually they paid the price for it. So they were a little bit too defensive. I thought the defensive line should have been a little bit higher up. they were too. They made it clear that they just wanted to hold on to the lead, and as a result, Ranieri was able to bring on multiple attackers. I mean, at the end, they had how many attackers did Roma have on the end? Because they saw that Napoli were just defending, and they took off. They went defensive, bringing on like Mazzocchi for Neres, for example, and if they've held on, some would have said, well, it was the right thing to do, but I think that they overdid it. I thought in this game.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair, given how the game looked. But I just, I'm surprised. I was a little bit surprised that Roma equalized, but I do feel that it's a little bit 2 points dropped more than 1.1 for Napoli. But regardless, when you're on a 7-win streak in the Serie A, a point away to Roma is not the end of the world, especially with Udinese, Como, and Lazio coming up. I mean, Lazio have been a little bit of a bogey team for Napoli. They've lost both of their games to them this season. That's going to be a game. That's going to be a very important game for them. But I expect them to beat Udinese and Como before that match against Inter, which, if I know my Antonio Conte, that's the game he wants to end. He wants to deal the blow to Inter and that title charge in that game at home at the Maradona. That's just how he's wired. Direct encounter, knock them off their perch at home in front of your fans, end the discussion then and there. So that's what he's
I think Nima, that and I think Conte said this. I said, look, they've had a difficult run of fixtures. They played Atalanta away, Juventus home, Roma away. If somebody had said to me, you're going to take 7 points from 9 at the start of that run, and you'll still be, level with Inter, let's say, if they win their game in hand, I think, they would have been happy with that. They would have taken that right then, especially with Kvaratskhelia leaving, with the injuries to Buongiorno and Oliveira. They definitely would have taken that. But I think the manner that it happened, with a deep into injury time when you could have opened up a gap, especially after Inter had equalised as well. That's 3 point swing. I think that they will be. It is a blow in the Scudetto race. Obviously, like you said, that they're in a very, very good position. The next month is going to be crucial. Lazio away in a fortnight, then Inter at home at the beginning of March, and I think they've got Milan a couple of weeks after that as well. So the next month is going to be crucial. But if we take a step back, I think that they're in a good position. I have to say though, and we'll speak about this when we do the transfer market winners and losers. I have to say that if I'm Antonio Conte, if you see his pre-match quotes where he said how unhappy he basically said how unhappy he was at the way that Napoli have not replaced Kvaratskhelia. He has every right to be unhappy because Napoli right now are in a really, really, even with these two drop points, they're in a really, really good position to go on and win this Scudetto. And of course, Inter are a great team and Inter might end up winning the Scudetto, but Napoli are in a great position where they've got rid of 3 of their tough games. They've got mostly home games against the tough teams, apart from Lazio. In the rest of the season, they're playing once a week. They're playing well. They're in good form. They're in a wonderful, wonderful position, and they've just received 75 million for their best player, Kvaratskhelia, and they haven't replaced him. They're gonna, we're recording this on the morning of Monday. It's deadline day. There's still 12 hours to go in the market. They might go out and, who knows, surprise us and sign some big names. I don't think they will. Not in attack. It looks like Alan Saint-Maximin, who's a Fenerbahce backup player, rotation player, who hasn't had a particularly good season there, is going to replace Kvaratskhelia. If I'm Antonio Conte, and they go to the end of the season now and they don't win this Scudetto, then I'm sorry, but I am absolutely furious if I'm Antonio Conte. In fact, I might even walk out. In fact, he probably will walk out because you've got 75 million. You're in a great position to go on and win the Scudetto. Well, go and win the Scudetto in the market now. Bring in those players. Bring in a top... For starters, you've got to bring in a top replacement for Clara and then do some more. You've got the money to go with. And Because honestly, Nim, I have to say, if he wins the Scudetto with this squad, what an achievement.
Well, you know
Yes,
what I've
okay,
called it?
yes,
I've
I know
called
they're
it his
playing once a
Mona
week.
Lisa if he does it.
Well,
I
yeah,
say
I
for me,
know. I know
Mona
playing
Lisa.
once a week is a huge advantage. I know that. Even in this game, they were dealt a huge advantage. And Ranieri played half his team. You know, but it's you look at. I'm sorry, but their squad is way off in depth. Look at the midfield. If something happens to one of their three midfielders, it's Billy Gilmore or Philip Billin coming into the
No.
team. He's played this month with Juan Jesus at centre back, with
They've been
Spinazzola, who
really
looked
good.
completely past it and finished. Somehow he's managed to get him into form, and he's been really good the last few weeks. Scored a great goal in this goal, great lob. But you know, in attack, okay, they've got Raspadori, they've got Simeone, they're serviceable. You know, they'll do a job. But I'm sorry, you know, even in this game, you know, what a difference it would have made in this game if he could have taken off David Neres and brought in a really top attacker or Kvaratskhelia to come on. Then I'm sorry, they win this game. They've got that threat on the counter, and they probably score a second goal and win. But instead, he doesn't have those top options in attack, so he goes to a Mazzocchi, tries to hold on. So the point I'm making is, you know, I'm very unhappy with Conte, and I think he showed that. He said we're not a big team. This proves that we're not a big team, and I think he's right.
Well, Aurelio De Laurentiis has to be careful. There's a couple of things I want to say here. Aurelio De Laurentiis has to be careful here. This is in these situations is when Conte can blow a fuse and really blow a fuse. So you have to handle this very calmly, and you have to handle it delicately because this is a unbelievable. Conte's not stupid. He understands if he wins the Serie A with this trophy with this team, it's his greatest achievement. It will cement his position as one of, if not the greatest league coach in modern times in Italian football. Then definitely one of them. He understands that, and he has the ambition and the ego to match of that to achieve that, and he wants to achieve that. However, I also understand De Laurentiis. They spent a lot of money last summer, and Napoli are not a team that historically under De Laurentiis does that much in January. They don't like doing that. They like doing their business in the summer. They don't like fiddling too much with the squad in January, and I can understand why. There is a very limited transfer window especially for Italian clubs, with a limited budget. So I do kind of see both sides here, but at the same time, I do understand Conte's frustration. I do understand his, and this builds up, and when he doesn't win, this builds up even more. And he's not exactly known for being able to regulate his emotions very well. So this is a very delicate situation, and it needs to be handled. And you need a sporting director who can kind of maintain the peace of the house. You've got two rather volatile characters in that house. So it's a little bit, delicate, but I still look, like I said, I look at the fixtures Napoli have got left. I expect Inter to get to the semi-final of the Coppa Italia and the quarter-final of the Champions League. And I'm looking at match day. I tweeted wrongly that I think Conte will secure this on match day 34 because I thought that's when they were playing away to Lecce. It's match day 35. They play away to Lecce. I think at Lecce, away, Via del Mare, with Napoli hosting, that's when he secures the Scudetto. That's what I'm looking at. I did a bit of comparing the games left, and I think he will, because now, after a draw like this, Conte's obsessive. He will detail Udinese going into next weekend like he is playing 1970 Brazil in the World Cup final. He will dismember them into atoms in how they play, and his players will turn up to that game knowing exactly what happened. This is how he will approach every single game until the end of the season. And given the fixture list that Inter have, with playing Fiorentina twice and then Juventus away, just this week, just these next 2 weeks, I think he's going to build up a rather comfortable lead. And given that Inter are going to have 4 more games in March, April, I think he's fine. And match day 35 at Via del Mare, his hometown, Lecce. That's when he's going to secure the
I think,
split.
obviously the playing once a week is Napoli's advantage, but at the same time, given that squad and the really, I would say it's a really poor depth in that Napoli squad. Napoli are also going to have to be fortunate not to get injuries, and obviously it's easier to avoid injuries when you're playing once a week. But if something happens to Lukaku, who has had a lot of injury problems in the last few years, and his body has been breaking down, and somehow they've managed to keep him quite fit actually this season. If something was to happen to Lukaku, or if something was to happen to Neres, or even more, something happens to one or two of those midfielders, Napoli they're gonna drop points because their team's not going to be good enough at all. So they're going to need to be fortunate to keep most of their team fit, and so that's something that's always a risk for them. Let's move on to Juventus, who in the end thrash Empoli 4-1, but that doesn't tell the story of this game, because Juventus go behind early. They go behind to a goal from De Sciglio. At that time, the first thing that comes into my mind when De Sciglio scores is this really just sums up Juventus's banter era, or Juventus's banter era week. Let's say, in the space of a week, we've gone from getting thrashed in the Champions League with Weston McKennie as captain, with three midfielders playing in defence, with Lloyd Kelly, being signed for 22 million from Newcastle reserves, and then De Sciglio, who's kind of been a banter era player for Juventus in the last few years, then scores to give Empoli the lead. And that's what I'm thinking. And honestly, for the first 20 minutes of this first 20 to 25 minutes of this game, this was banter era on steroids from Juventus. It is the most pathetic, embarrassing 20 to 25 minutes I think I've ever seen from a Juventus team. And certainly the worst 20 to 25 minutes of this season. It was so bad. Everything that Juventus did, they were giving up chance after chance. There were players passing the ball. Vega, the new signing, passed at one point, passed the ball straight out of play. They couldn't string two passes together. It was just so bad. They conceded a penalty to go 2-0, and they're fortunate that the penalty gets overturned. I think it is the correct decision, but they're fortunate there because it was a handball in the build up to the penalty being given. They should have been at least two behind. And then they somehow they worked their way into the match, and in the end actually played pretty well in the end, Juventus, and they deservedly turn it round. And Kolo Muani obviously is the man that really made the difference. He scored an excellent finish for the first goal, very lucky goal for the second, but he really has he really saved Motta, because at half time Motta's 45 minutes away from possibly the sack, Nima,
Yeah,
don't you think?
yeah, I agree, and that's why I tweeted it out. Not because of the result per se, but when a team behaves like ghosts, invisible, like Juventus did, especially in those opening 25 minutes, that's when managers get the sack. But conversely, and equally, when the team reacts the way that they did, and I think no one else embodies that better than Kolo Muani. Let's remember, this is a player who's not going to be at Juventus longer than 6 months. Like he's not, he doesn't need to go in and die for Juve the way that he does, but his attitude and his desire, he shows more that there in these couple of games he's played than Douglas Luiz has done all season. Someone like him,
Mm.
and it's that coupled with a Juventus that imposes themselves, that look like they care, they actually react. That suggests to me that no, Motta hasn't lost the dressing room and that they're still behind him. And that's a good sign for Juve, because they can't, like, a mid-season coaching change is the last thing that Juve need right now, on top of all the other nonsense going on and the
Yeah.
crises.
Well, just on Moani, just to build on your Moani point, I think that he's had a really good start. 3 goals in 2 games, but what I like about him from what I've seen so far is he has some life about him, which is what Juve need. Juve have just lacked life.
They look bloodless.
And I'm not talking just about the physical condition, which is true. I don't think physically the condition of the players hasn't been good enough this season, and that I think is on Motta and the preparation. I don't think has been up to scratch. But he looks fresh. He's got life, but also from a tactical point of view, and I hope he doesn't get this coached out of him by Motta. Everything about Juventus this season has been so almost like it's remote controlled offensively by Motta. Players are inhibited. They're repressed because Motta has such a specific system-based play in terms of his build-up and his patterns, and players are not free to express themselves properly. And he seems to have life and freedom the way that he plays, and I think that's shown by the way that he doesn't, he's not overthinking things. He's just playing freely. Even with the way that he did his finish, which wasn't an easy finish actually. The first goal was a really good finish at the near post. So I hope that he continues like that, because if Juve are to rescue the top four, and it's going to be very difficult because there's a lot of problems there in this Juventus team and club. Muani's going to be crucial. He's going to be crucial. He really is, and he saved them in this game. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, I thought that the other positives were there was some good pressing in this game after that horrific kind of first 25 minutes, half an hour. For the second hour, for the last hour of this game, I thought Juventus actually were winning it back. A lot of turnovers. They were aggressive, and they were. I thought that side of the game was much better. They showed more fight, like you said, more life, and they were less, like I said, almost with Muani, they were less tactically remote controlled. Less, they kind of, it was, they just went out and played and just tried to win the game, freely, not consciously thinking of every single thing that they were doing. Let's be in this position, let's do this pass here and this pass. They just played. They just went out and played. And sometimes, against smaller teams, that's often enough. So Yildiz, I thought was great. His Zidane turn, his little roulette before the Muani second goal was magical, absolutely magical, brilliant. And Vlahovic scored off the bench with a brilliant goal. To be fair, it was a great strike. I'm still going to be critical though. He should have passed it. It was 4-on-1. If he doesn't score that goal, then he gets crucified for that, because Juventus are 4-on-1. He should have passed it for an easy goal. He takes a shot, which is a very low XG chance of scoring. But fair play, it's an amazing strike. It's a brilliant strike. So strike. We can't criticise him for scoring. So fair play to Vlahovic. And Conceicao scored off the bench as well. I've always said with Conceicao, he's a better player off the bench than he is as a starter. He's somebody for the last 20 to 30 minutes when teams are tired and he can run at teams, and that's how I would use him going forward. Conceicao, don't start him. Have him as an impact sub.
You mean Thiago Motta?
Conceicao.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I misunderstood what you said. Yeah,
Conceicao's son, let's say. Conceicao Junior.
Sorry, my head was on Sergio. I think that's true. I think given that he's very technical 1v1 and he's a little bit diamond in the rough kind of thing. So yeah.
There's still lots of worries for me though, because even at 2-1, the goal for 2-1 was lucky, but Colombo goes inches wide at 2-1 to make it 2-2 with around 10 minutes to go, something like that. And then Esposito has a goal-bound volley that gets blocked that could have been. So Juventus are still their defense. The defense is a state. They're now they're now signing Lloyd Kelly. We'll come to that when we do the transfers, winners and losers, which is just embarrassing. Juventus's overall state is not good at all, and that's going to impact their top four definitely. But this was a must-win game for Motta to save him, but also for the top four. It's going to be a real fight to try and get in that top four. There's no doubt about it. And when I look at the state of that defence, I'm not really I don't really have lots of confidence, but they got the job done. And Empoli are in crisis. 2 points from 8 games now, and they've lost Ismaili and Angelino to injuries. They lost those 2 players at 1-0, which also helped Juve, I must say. If Ismaili hadn't got injured, who knows if Juve would have broken them down. But those are 2 big injuries. So Empoli, I think they're in a bit of trouble now, and then maybe the manager they need to be looking at the manager as well.
Yeah, we'll see. But it's no, I think Empoli will be fine. I think I know that they're in bad form, but I think they'll sort it out. I think compared to the others in the bottom, I think they've got enough quality to stay up. So yeah, but it's for Juve, it's. I mean, if you look at that situation, I mean, in a weekend when Dean Huijsen has been outstanding, but they sold him. And now they're chasing a defender. If you look at Hans Nicolosi Caviglia, scored a magical free kick for Venezia, has had a really good season. Rovella's been excellent for Lazio. There's a lot of players who they've sold, young players who they used to control, that have them scrambling now for Lloyd Kelly when they had Huijsen. Do you know what I mean? Like
Well, we'll come to that. I want to talk about that.
It adds insult to injury as to how bad Giuntoli's been.
Yeah, he's a disaster. But I want to talk about that. And don't worry, Nima, I'm going to go 2-foot in on him in the transfer market section. Atalanta, though, bad result for them, for Atalanta, on a weekend where they could have maybe got half a foot back into the Scudetto race, given the points dropped by both Napoli and Inter. But I think we've already said that definitely their Scudetto's over. This is 2 bad drop points against Torino. Bad first half from Atalanta, piled on the pressure in the second half, and definitely deserved to win. They actually ended up having an XG of over 3 in this game, which sounds a bit too high based on their performance, but I think it comes from a multitude of chances kind of later on in the second half. But
and the penalty they missed as well,
and the penalty Retegui missed.
Saved.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but the form hasn't been good in 2025. I mean, they went on those 11 straight wins, but they only have 1 win in Serie A this year, and they only have 2 wins in 9 games in all competitions. So, yeah, it's not the best of form for Atalanta, and they're starting to get injuries, which is a bit concerning. Also thinking ahead to the Champions League as well. I mean, they've lost 3 players to injury in this game. And Kolasinac, Carnesecchi, and then Scamacca, who returns from his ACL, gets injured straight away, and he's going to be out for a while. Not related to the ACL though. And they've already got Lookman's out for the next month or so. Scalvini and Costanu, their seasons are pretty much over. So these injuries are piling up, and it's a little bit concerning. I think for Atalanta.
No, I do think so. But I don't know. I feel like they're so comfortable in third. I think he's focusing more on the Champions League and the Coppa Italia. If I'm honest with you, I think he views his chances if he can win a Coppa Italia trophy on top of the Europa League trophy. That's big for Atalanta. And if he can go far in the Champions League as well, where they play a style of football that pays higher dividends in the Champions League in Europe than it does in the Serie A. I think that's their focus, if I'm perfectly honest with you. And they are loved by everyone in Europe. So it's I think he's fairly happy. I mean, if he's going to try to, I think Atalanta just basically looking at this third spot and trying to hold on to that and qualify for the Champions League next season.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to say one thing though. Milinkovic-Savic, Torino's goalkeeper. This guy is, and we've been praising him a lot already this season. But this season, he's faced 3 penalties in Serie A, and he saved all 3 of them. This is actually his second penalty save from Atalanta. He's actually cost Atalanta 4 points this season. Or 3 points. Let's say 3 points. 3 points. Yeah,
he's taken steps this season that are it's just remarkable. He's been one of the 3 best. Not. I think Carnesecchi's might have been made more spectacular saves, but he's really taken a step forward. Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, and he's a mentality monster, and he can just, the way that he was taunting the crowd as well, and he lives and breathes off of these things. He's the kind of character who loves to he's a fiery character, and he's been very, very good. And on penalties this season, especially, like I think I checked, he's only had 4 penalty saves his entire career. 3 have come this season. It's crazy. So it's Torino fight back valiantly, and they're a tough side to break down, and they have that monster in goal as well. So no, it was a rather entertaining game. I mean, I don't know if Retegui missed or if more than Vanja Milinkovic saves, but I do have to say I think it's a little bit concerning that Retegui is turning missing penalties into habit now. I think he's missed like 2 or 3 this season. It's
I
starting.
didn't like the fact that he did a little kind of pause before
I
taking
hate
it. That
that nonsense.
it gives, you lose momentum,
Yeah,
and it gives the goalkeeper the momentum. I
yeah,
think when you
agreed,
do that,
agreed, agreed.
unless you wait for the goalkeeper to move first, but not when you don't. I don't like it.
Yeah, same, same.
Fiorentina, very quickly, they beat Genoa, but it's the story is Moise Kean with a brilliant goal. Absolutely fantastic. Came over his head, watched it, and then flicked it in on the volley on the turn with the outside of his boot. Brilliant, brilliant goal. Magnificent. And he's now got 13 goals, which is his equal best season of his career. That's the number of goals he scored for PSG when he was there. And we're still in the start of February. It's also the third Fiorentina player on his debut season to score 13 plus goals at this stage of the season. The other two are Luca Toni and Alberto Gilardino. So yeah, I mean, Moise Kean, great. Big big win for Fiorentina in the top 4 race. They're in a really excellent position, and if they beat Inter, obviously it's big if, but if they beat Inter in the midweek rearranged game, they'll actually go above Juventus. And level with Lazio, assuming Lazio beat Cagliari. So they're doing really, really well. Overall, I don't think they played particularly well in this game, and I think Genoa probably deserved at least a point. But it's a big win for them, and Moise Kean, fantastic.
Yeah, look, Moise Kean's finish is what we remember from this game. It's stunning. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think he's equal with Marcus Thuram now on 13 goals in the Serie A top, capocannoniere. And he's coming there like a little dark horse, isn't he? In the sense
Yeah.
that no one's thinking that he could win it. And I still don't think that he will. Still think Retegui will. But he's definitely in there. And I think this is excellent for the Italian national team. You got Retegui and Ken together scoring 29 goals in the Serie A alone. That's very, very good. So they should be starting together. This is great news for Spalletti. But yeah, it was an important win for Fiorentina, who maintain after a little bit of a dip after the Bove incident and of course Palladino's mum passing away. They which would destabilize anyone. They're now back in the race for top 4, top 5, and I think it's going to be top 5 because I expect Italy to secure the 5th spot.
Well, they had a bad week, and Spain have virtually caught them now
Yeah.
last week. So it's like I said last week, it's out of Italy and Spain, and the fact that Italy didn't get only got one team into the last 16 automatically, Inter. That's a big
If
blow.
Juventus don't beat Feyenoord, and if Milan lose to PSV, and Atalanta don't beat Club Brugge, I don't know what to tell you.
It's a 50-50 now out of Italy and Spain. Spain have caught Italy now because of what
Yeah.
happened last week. It's 50-50. So and the problem is that one of Milan and Juve are going to go out, and Inter are going to go out in the last 16 as well. So we're going to lose one team there. So and then there's the risk Lazio could play Roma as well in the last 16. 50-50 chance of that happening if Roma go through. So we're going to lose one of those, and that's a big blow because we were banking on Roma and Lazio. It was a terrible week. It was a terrible week for Serie A teams last week in comparison to Spain. We need Spain to lose some teams. I'm worried now about that
Yeah.
top 4.
Yeah.
To be honest with
That's
you,
fair. That's
but
fair. That's fair.
we'll see. The next 2 rounds I think will be important. Let's do just before the rest of the weekend fixtures. I'll read out the results. So Parma won Lecce 3. Pecchia has to go, surely. He has to go. He's grossly underperforming with Parma. And that result, I'm surprised he hasn't gone already after that result.
Yeah, Kristovic has a wonderful game in that game, but the defending again and the way that Parma underperform, they're in a relegation battle. And I don't think they should be. Pecchia, I think, is really a dead man
I'm
walking.
feeling vibes of Frosinone vibes with Parma. They've
Yeah,
got lots
same.
of quality players, artistic, creative, attacking quality players that are going to be good enough for big clubs, but they have a dreadful defence. They have a too open game, and they don't have the fight for relegation fight. They're not a battle hardened team.
I think that's fair. I think that's very, very fair.
Not with Pecchia, anyway. That's for sure.
No. You don't want to go to a relegation dogfight with Fabio Pecchia.
You don't want to go to war with Fabio Pecchia.
No, you don't want to be led by him.
Yeah.
But especially after Hellas win, that was
Monza 0, Hellas 1, and then Udinese 3, Venezia 2, thrilling game there, and then Bologna 2, Como 0. So Bologna are right up there. Bologna are actually the most consistent team out of the teams going for the top four at the moment, and people are sleeping on them. You know,
and
after all this, they
they've
might even end up.
changed.
Yeah.
The thing is, the Italiano is, I don't know yet if it's the residue of Motta or if it's actually Vincenzo Italiano that has matured, but they defend and behave under Italiano this season like such a more mature team, like in the sense of an Italiano team. It's not this man marking across the pitch, high pressure, no, just gung ho. It's actually, the press is intelligent. They know when to fall back. They know when to push forward. They mix between man marking and zonal marking in a very smart way that his teams haven't before. But I don't know if this is the residue from Motta or if it's actually Vincenzo Italiano who's matured. I hope it's the latter, because it would be great, because that means that he's constructing a career for bigger, better things. So I hope so. And Bologna are a fun team to watch. Just that 5-goal thriller, Udinese Venezia. Hans Nicolosi Caviglia's free kick is just that is beautiful. Like, just go watch that. I don't know how many times I've watched that free kick. You don't see free kick goals anymore. So whenever we see them, I get like really excited. And especially that one was stunning. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to, it's deadline day today. We're recording this on Monday, so there are still some transfers that will go through before the close of Monday. But let's do our transfer market winners and losers for Serie A this January. And what I think is the easiest way to do is, let's work through each of the major teams. I'll quickly run through what business they've done, and then let's give a grade out of 10. Some of these teams will be hard to give grades for, but some we can go into more detail, in particular Juventus, which I will be going into a lot of detail on. So let's start off with Inter. They've brought in one player, Zalewski, on loan from Roma. They've got rid of two players, Palacios to Monza on loan, and Buchanan on loan to Villarreal with an option to buy, I believe. So that's their business. Not much to go on, really, Nima. So do you want to try and give a rating out of 10 for that?
I don't know what to say. They've not done anything. I mean, it's just, I really don't know what to say. I mean, what do you give? I mean, I don't know how to rate.
Yeah, probably just 6 out of 10, because it's a standard. Like, haven't done anything, haven't. It's just Zalewski for Buchanan, really.
Yeah, and Palacios wasn't even really part of the project.
No.
I mean, they sent him on Monza, and he was actually pretty good. People, he was a bit slow for the goal, but overall, that was a decent performance by Palacios against Hellas, to be honest. And I'm glad that he's out there, because he's a big guy, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
Zalewski's probably slightly more useful from Buchanan, so in that respect, it's probably let's give it a 6.1 out of 10. rather than a 6 out of 10. Like, he'll be slightly more useful than Buchanan.
No, as I said in the intersection, I
Mm.
think that he's going to be. I think he's potentially a really shrewd signing. He's young. Defensively, there are issues, but look, if Inzaghi can make Di Marco work, defensively, I don't see why he can't improve Zalewski, who's a young player. What
Yeah.
I do like about Zalewski is that he's a good crosser, and we saw that. I mean, he in a team like Inter, that is something very useful, and it was a great start, the assist and also the cross for Dumfries.
Yeah.
And he can play on both wings, which
Mm.
Inzaghi likes. No, I think I think that'll be a shrewd signing, to be
Okay.
honest.
Napoli now. So far, and there is going to be a lot of stuff happening on deadline day. Napoli players they brought in: Scuffet on loan from Cagliari, Hassa from Lecce, Billing on loan from Bournemouth. The players that have gone out are Mario Rui, released, Caprile on loan to Cagliari, Foloruncio to Fiorentina, Zerbin on loan to Venezia, and of course the big one, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia to PSG for 75 million. Now, there will be stuff happening on deadline day. Napoli actually want to sign a defender, a midfielder, an attacker. They are in talks to bring in Comuzzo from Fiorentina, which will be a good signing for the future. And for now, they need a backup at centre back, and he's he's had a very good season until the last few weeks where he's been a little bit disappointing for Fiorentina. But that's also the kind of signing they need to try and refresh and build for the future, because this is an old team that I think is going to maybe struggle next season unless they address that. So that will be a decent signing. Midfield, we'll see if they bring anyone in. But the failure to properly replace Kvaratskhelia, which as we discussed earlier on in the podcast, Conte is very unhappy about and was critical of in his pre-match press conference ahead of the weekend. Um, that's a huge failure by Napoli, in that they've got a great chance to go on and win this Scudetto, and if they don't win the Scudetto, Conte has every right at the end of the season to blame the failure to properly spend the Kvara money and replace him properly, as a big reason why. So for that reason alone, Nima, I'm going to give this. I'm going to give this for now. I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 10. But if they bring in Komutso, I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like Komutso's staying,
Mm.
and also this Saint Maximan player. Like, I don't particularly rate him, but if Conte's given the green light and he thinks he can work with him, look, I've seen Conte win league titles with Paduin and Giaccherini and Victor Moses and Ashley Young. So I if Conte's given the green light, then I'm sure he'll do fine. I mean, he very rarely fails with signings because he's such a system manager and he knows exactly what he wants. So I still maintain that Napoli shouldn't do anything. I think it's the wise thing to do in terms of fine, because the amount of money they spent last summer, and also there's more things to do in next summer.
Yeah, but the point is that I think you can only justify not doing anything if you don't if you win the Scudetto. If you win the Scudetto, then it's justified. If
Mm.
not, then you've blown a rare chance to win the Scudetto, because they're not going to get another chance, I don't think, to win the
No, I
Scudetto.
don't think so
They
either.
won't, because next season they're going to be in the Champions League, and Conte or no Conte, I'm sorry, this team is not winning
No,
the Scudetto next
no,
season
I don't
with
think
this
so either.
squad, with that
I
many
don't think
number
so
of
either.
games. It's
I
just
think
not
this. I
happening.
agree with you. I think this is the golden
So
chance,
this
and I
is
think
why
Conte
I
knows
think that
it.
they should have taken this opportunity.
Mm.
They might go another 33 years without winning a Scudetto.
Mm. He's
It's
going to win it,
possible.
like I said, match day 35 at Via del Mare in his hometown, where he is pretty hated because of his connections to Bari. And Bari and Lecce, there's a rivalry there, for those who don't know. For him to come back to his hometown, and he's going to
Mm.
win it. And he's
Let's move
going to
on
win
to
it, I think.
Atalanta. So far, and they're going to be doing business on deadline day. They brought in Daniel Maldini. They've let go Godfrey to Ipswich Town on loan, Soppy on loan to Lausanne. but they've had some really bad news as we're speaking, and Scamacca is going to be out for quite a while again. So I don't even know if we can write off his season, given he's coming back from an ACL. Those other injuries, which we said earlier in this pod. So I think they're going to sign an attacker for sure, another striker, and they need a defender as well. They've got nothing in defence now. They're absolutely decimated in defence. They don't even have enough defenders. They're going to have to play their own pretty much every game in defence. So I think they will sign another defender. So right now, I mean, they've lost Zaniolo's going to Fiorentina. His contract, his loan contract has been terminated. So yeah, I don't think it's been a good market for Atalanta, but they'll have to try and rescue it on deadline day. So right now, as we speak, I'm probably going to go 5 out of 10.
Yeah, but I that announcement video of Daniel Maldini is a nerazzurro. Nerazzurro fits better. I mean, that is just that's elite trolling. Like, I giggled a lot when I saw that. It was hilarious. But yeah, no, I think you're right. They needed to do something in defense, and they didn't.
Yeah,
So,
and midfield as well, in my opinion.
yeah. Now,
Yeah.
for me, it was more about the defense. I just don't think
Midfield to centre midfield, as we said, like they don't have anything other than Edison.
Yeah,
Centre mid.
Edison is a problem that they don't have anything to back aside. If he were to be injured or suspended, I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
But the defense for me, I mean, if you, I'm not talking about buying, Buongiorno. That's a little bit might be a little bit out of their league, but they should be able to have better defenders than Jim City and Toloi. They really should.
Yeah, Lazio. So they've been quite busy. They brought in Ibrahimovic from Bayern Munich,
Right.
Provstgard from Velje, and they've just sorted out a deal for Belahian from Verona, who's
That's
been
a smart
wanted
move.
by a lot of big clubs. Castrovilli and Akpro both going to Monza on loan. I look at this for Lazio as Lazio basically working for the future. They
Yep.
really are doing a really good job in buying younger, developing players and creating the next team of Lazio, which is they've done such a great job because we thought that they were going to struggle for a couple of years. We spoke about it a lot on the pod, and I think that was a logical thing to say, looking at how old their team is and the way that they've managed to so quickly create actually quite a young team with a lot of upturn. They tried to sign Casadei. They obviously missed out on him. So
That is the most ridiculous transfer soap opera I
yeah.
think I've ever seen. A friend of mine was a Laziale, he's a patron on the pod, David. He messaged me saying this ridiculous soap opera. It's like we're trying to sign Neymar, not Cesare Casadei. It's ridiculous. Back and forth between Torino and Lazio. It's done. It's not done. It's done. It's not done. It's just been a complete shit show. But again, to your first point, Lazio under Lotito are good at building this first step. They're very good at year 0 and year 1. They always fail when they go higher up, and that's just how it is with Lotito. He's very good at rebooting and building something from scratch. So, but they have done it faster than I expected. Absolutely,
Much faster. And that's
much
why
faster.
I'm very, very impressed with what
I
they've
hope they
done.
go on and win the Europa League. I'm pissed off that they can't play Roma in the final, because that would have been one of the most beautiful, amazing things ever. But yeah, I hope they go on and win the Europa League. One of whoever wins Roma Lazio
I
when they
think they
play each
can
other.
still. I need to work it out because they're not guaranteed to play them in the last season. It's 50-50. If they don't meet them, I'm not sure where they go in the draw. If they go on the other side of the draw and miss it, I'm not sure. I need to work that out. But it's a 50-50 chance they could meet in the last 16. Juventus. Okay. Right. So Juventus are
Welcome to the Juventus bitch fest
yeah,
featuring Carlo
yeah,
Garganese.
Juventus are undoubtedly the losers of the transfer market. There's no doubt about that, and that isn't just in reference to the now, today, and this season, but more so, I think, for what it represents for the Juventus project as a whole, what it represents for Juventus building for the future, and what their team's going to be like for next season. What it means not just for the sporting side, but also for the financial side of the club. It's an unmitigated disaster in the whole, if we look at it like that. So the players they've brought in so far are Kolo Muani on an expensive loan from PSG to the end of the season. Albert Costa from Vitoria Guimaraes for around 15 million euros. Renato Vega on an expensive dry loan also from Chelsea of around, I think, 4.5 to 5 million. And then Lloyd Kelly from Newcastle for 22
You say
million.
it with such disgust, that poor guy's name.
There's no, well, of course.
It's not his
so
fault.
far, zero sales. Can't sell a life jacket on the Titanic. Can't even give away a life jacket on the Titanic. Our Cristiano Gentili. Let me first of all just to comment on the Lloyd Kelly signing. 22 million euros in total, plus a sell-on fee. So that even if Juventus sell him on, Newcastle are going to get some of that. I mean, this is such a horrific deal. I just cannot believe it. Again, this is nothing against Lloyd Kelly at all. I'm not, I hope he's a successful signing for Juventus. I hope he is, and it wouldn't be the first time where we as in everyone has been critical of a signing and they proved us wrong. I hope he proves us wrong. I hope he's fantastic. I hope he turns into Bobby Moore. It would be great. But I mean, it's absolutely shocking that first of all, from a defensive point of view, Juventus knew since the beginning of October that they needed to sign a centre back to replace Bremer, who done his ACL. They had 3 months going into January. It's now 4 months now, basically, since his injury. And they've had all that time to prepare. It was obviously heightened by the injury to Cabal as well. And it's come to the final day of the transfer window. And Juventus Majunti are scrambling around, making a panic buy to pay 22 million for a Newcastle reserve who left on a free transfer last summer. I mean, it's just embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing to pay that amount of money on a player who probably is not even going to, he's not even going to be a first choice Juventus player, because the first choice pair, when they're fit, are going to be Gatti and Kalulu. You're paying 22 million. I mean, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And, you could have, if you're going to buy a backup centre back because you're so desperate, just keep Danilo to the end of the season. Keep Danilo as a fourth choice centre back and don't pay anything. From a financial point of view, when you're already struggling, I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's got to this. It's crazy. It's crazy. And this is, that's just the centre back. Then you look at everything as a whole. I mean, how much money has Juncity spent this January? I think somebody else did the maths. It comes to about 45 million in total, the amount of money that he spent this month when you add up all the loan fees. Two of these loans are they're going to lose at the end of the season, so that's dead money. Albert Costa, who they've signed, hasn't played a minute yet. Alberto Costa hasn't played a minute yet, and is clearly a player that they're going to be developing. So I mean, Kolo Muani looks like he's going to be a good buy, and hopefully we'll get them, into the top four. But Juventus Juventus won't have him next season because it's only a loan. So this is just no way to build a team. It really isn't it, and it's just another black mark against Giuntoli in what has been a disastrous season for him in the transfer market, going back to last summer, which we've spoken to death about. How much money he wasted. 145 million euros on 3 flops in Douglas Luiz, Coop Miners, and Nico Gonzalez. He's gone 6 months with only one striker. He's created a defence that's so shallow that against Benfica last week, they had to play 3 midfielders in the back four. Now you add on to that they've spent 22 million on Lloyd Kelly. They spent 50 million on Douglas Luiz instead of signing Calafiori. They've tried to sell Cambiasso. He hasn't been able to sell anyone, and just embarrassing, really. It really is. Juventus look like a banter club, banter era club with the way that they handled, the way Giuntoli's handled this transfer market.
Yeah, it's not been good, and it reeks of desperation. It really does reek of desperation, and But the proof will be in the pudding if, depending on how it goes and so on. But it does feel very much like someone who is scrambling, who is backpedaling, trying to save his own butt after a dreadful summer so far. Because again, no Italian club can afford to spend 140 million, and all those three players so far have been dreadful. I'm not saying that they're going to be. I think Cook Miners and Nico Gonzalez will still probably come good. But Douglas Luiz is just, it's an embarrassment. Like, you can't afford to. And every single three of them so far has been duds so far. But
we're told Juventus have no money, and they don't. But then they spend 22 million on Lloyd Kelly, who's going to be a backup defender at most.
and if you add,
maybe fourth choice defender. We're told, so where's that 22 million is going to have to come from somewhere. So it's going to come from a sacrifice. They're trying to get rid of Fagioli on deadline day, which is fine, okay, but they're going to get less money for Fagioli than what they're paying for Lloyd Kelly. So that doesn't make any sense from a financial point of view. Trying to save money. And repeat this. You could have just kept, if you're going to sign Lloyd Kelly because you've got no depth in attack, you could have just kept Danilo as a fourth choice. Don't get me wrong. I think Danilo's way past his best. He's not good enough for Juventus. But if you're talking about, you're now got to the desperation stage where you just need a body. You just need someone to be the fourth centre back. You could have had Danilo and not spent a penny. And now you're spending 22 million.
Or you could have just kept Dean Huyson, who was doing a fantastic job at Bournemouth. You're paying 7 million more for Lloyd Kelly than you got when you sold Huyson.
But this is the whole problem, though, because there was a reason for selling Dean Huyson in the summer, and that was to try and fund their summer transfer market. Bringing in the other players, which have ended up being a failure, right? But the point is that this is the whole issue that I've had with Juventus's transfer markets for a long time, way predating Giuntoli into the time of Paratici, where it's just one player in. It's just constant firefighting. It is we have to sacrifice this player in order to be able to, one, balance the books, but two, in order to bring in this player that we need to fill in this hole. And it's just constant firefighting. So we have to sacrifice Spinazzola, we have to sacrifice Cancelo in order to bring in this player. So you're getting rid of a good player that's weakening your team in order to bring in a player in another position. We have to sacrifice Dean Huyson because we want to sign Douglas Luiz, or we have to sacrifice Cambiasso in January because we need a centre back and we're going to sign a centre back with Cambiasso's money. This is not how you build. It's just putting one fire out, you start another fire. You put out one fire, you start another fire. This is not a way that a competent top director. It's not something you would ever see a top sporting director do. And this is the problem Juventus have had ever since the Ronaldo. So ever since the Ronaldo deal, it's been sacrificing one player, top player, in order to pay for another one, and it's just no way to build a team. And this is why Juventus are not going to build a successful team with this strategy.
No, he is scrambling. It's not looking good, but yeah. No, it's
so for me, it's a 1 out of 10. Or a 0 out of 10.
God,
0.5 because Kolo Muani. Kolo Muani has been
so dramatic.
Yeah.
No, it's not. You can't give it a 0. Like,
0 out of 10.
Oh dear.
0 out of 10.
No,
Milan.
I'd say 4. I'd say something.
That's very generous. Milan. So Milan are bringing in Kyle Walker. Brought in Kyle Walker and Santi Jimenez. Calabria and Morata have gone. There is a potential of a late deadline day deal. João Felix is a possibility. Okafor could leave as well. Atalanta are looking at him. So yeah, Milan. I think Milan have done well. Milan have done well. They've strengthened. That's all you can ask. Is the team stronger through their signings? Yes, the defense is definitely stronger with Walker and Jimenez. I mean, Morata. Even if Jimenez is not good, he can't be worse than Morata. So time will tell if he's a success. But Morata was not offering anything. So I think it's a deal they had to do, and we'll see if it works out. So I think Milan has been
It's
good.
a player they've wanted for a long time. I'm glad they
Yeah.
got that over the
I
line.
think 7 out of 10 for Milan. I think they're a stronger
Yeah.
team. They're stronger
I think
for it.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Who are we missing? Fiorentina and Roma to finish off. So Fiorentina have been quite active actually. Fiorentina,
Yeah.
they still will be on. So they brought in Valentini from Boca Juniors, Folorincio from Napoli, Pablo Mari from Monza, Cher and Dur for Besiktas, Zaniolo from Galatasaray. Out, Icone to Como, Martinez Quarta to River Plate, Christensen, Salernitana, and Coyote to Brentford. They're still trying to do some business on deadline day as well. Fagioli, someone they're looking at, although Marseille are ahead at the moment. I think pretty good. Coyote obviously is a bit gutting because he's someone for the future for them. But I think that Folorincio is a good signing for them. Zaniolo can, if they can get the best out of him. Pablo Mari, as long as they don't lose Komutsa, which you said you think is going to stay now, I would give them a 7 as well.
Agreed. I think they've done good business, and I think they're already in a good position. So yeah, I think 6.5, 7 is fair.
Yeah, and finally Roma. So Roma let's have a look who Roma brought in the January transfer market. So they brought in Wrench from Ajax, Bellini from Atalanta, and they are going to bring in a centre back. It looks like Nelson from Galatasaray, who you know about. It was going to be Godslidze, who came on, who was left out of the team for the Empoli Juventus game because he was about to join Roma, was forced to come on in the second half because Ismaili got injured, had a disastrous substitute appearance, and Roma decided from that substitute appearance not to sign him and sign Nelson instead. So probably a loser of the window is Godslidze from Empoli, who lost his move to Roma because of playing as a sub in a game in which he wasn't supposed to play. And if he hadn't have played, would have moved to Roma. So that's a quirk. And then out, Lefebvre to Sunderland, Ryan to Lens, Hermoso to Bayer Leverkusen, and Zalewski to Inter. So limited business for Roma in this market. It's probably not really easy to give them anything other than a 6, I would say, really.
Yeah, and also it's a Roma that need to kind of get rid of the nonsense that happened last summer and bring themselves to this summer, the next summer, coming summer, in some sort of a stability so they can actually restart a serious project. So they're basically trying to get rid of players that are not part of anything. And so I think 6.5 is fair.
Okay. Right. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So Baggio, Nima. Do you have a Baggio?
I've got a couple. Hans Nicolosi Cavalier's free kick, Kenan Yildiz roulette, Moise Kean finish. I mean, Kristovic's goal. It's been a good weekend for nice goals.
Yeah, great header from Kristovic for sure. Premface of the week. I've got a couple here. So first of all, Alejandro Balde for Barcelona, who didn't even know who Gasperini was in the pre-match presser before Barcelona's game against Atalanta. You don't even know the coach of the team. Nothing sums up the younger generation, does it? They're better than Alejandro Balde. I mean, totally ignorant. Completely ignorant. I don't care.
Proud of it too.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was Premfacer, isn't it? Proud to be done.
Proud to not know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it literally is that embodiment of Chris Rock saying, that skit he does about, I don't know that shit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
keeping it real.
Keeping it real dumb. Like, it's being proud of being stupid is and being ignorant is, yeah.
Yeah, mad. And Samuel Luckhurst, the Manchester United journalist, who said that Kobe Mainu reminded
I've got the
him.
tweet here. I've said for ages that Kobe Mainu reminds me a bit of Iniesta with how he operates on the ball and that he can move from midfielder to playmaker. Shows promise further forward in the first half, and he stepped it up this half.
Who was the half against?
I can't remember. They win the Europa League.
Yeah, it was Steaua Bucharest, wasn't it? we're not talking about Steaua Bucharest 1986
I was going
European
to say
Cup
this
winners.
isn't.
We're talking about Steaua Bucharest 2025 ravaged by the West. That's what we're talking about. Right.
And this other guy, the Euro, I don't know what he's called, Alex or Euro Kid or whatever, who said that this most sensible move that Everton could make is signing Samuel Ricci. And it's like, yeah, it's, you know what would be sensible for IFK Gothenburg, my IFK Gothenburg to do? They have offensive problems to bring Lionel Messi. He'd fit in perfectly. I mean, it's, can we be realistic here?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's sensible. There's nothing. It's like, no, Ricci is not going to David Moyes to play in his midfield.
Oh
Anyone
God,
with
yeah. We don't want Moyes destroying another young Italian talent.
it's a sensible move. It's like
Mm.
you just tweeted the most ridiculously unrealistic, nonsensical thing ever, and you're trying to pass it off as sensibility.
Mm.
It's like, I get that you're maybe trying to educate your audience, which don't watch anything outside of at most the Championship, but it's not
Sensible. What a word.
sensible.
Not
Like,
the most. Doesn't really sell it well, does it? Sensible
no.
signings. Sensible should never be used with football, unless it's sensible soccer, which was one of the
Oh my god, I love that game.
one of the greatest football games ever.
Great
Right,
bait.
Serie ASS of the week. I have. This is. I can't believe this actually happened. So when Lautaro Martinez scored the hat trick goal for Inter in the Champions League against Monaco, brilliant hat trick as well. The Serie A official Twitter account wrote and tweeted this: Lisandro Martinez scored a hat trick for Inter in the Champions League. Lisandro Martinez.
Yeah, that is just chef's kiss. But Rocco Commisso admitting that he used anonymous Twitter accounts back in 2017 to insult US FA and MLS directors is one of the most hilarious things I have ever read. When he was in 2017, he was in. I think he still got them when he was the president of the NASL. He used anonymous Twitter accounts to attack the directors of the people who run the US soccer and MLS. It's hilarious. It's
Good old
like
Uncle Rocco, eh?
it's so on brand. It's so on brand.
Love it. Final one. I want to get your opinion on this because I've spoken to a few people and I really don't get it. I don't understand why he would say what he said.
Because
Did
he's
he mean
talking
it?
shit. That's why.
So this Riccardo Trevisani, who's a great commentator, by the way, he was describing the goal from Chukwueze that won the game for Milan against
Parma.
Roma last Sunday, the Sunday before, and for some reason, like he said, goal da nigga. But what did he mean by it? Like, did he mean goal da nigga, the centre back, but he
Who plays for
plays for
Como?
Como, which makes no sense? Or was he saying something racist? Goal, as in goal, scored, da, from, in Italian, niga. Like, what? But then they're laughing at it, and then the guy next to him is laughing as if he says something hilarious. I don't get it. I don't understand.
They're making racial puns, as
Is
they
he?
like to do. Of course he is. What other logical explanation is there? Goldaniga plays for Como. What's that got to do with Parma Milan and with Chukwueze scoring the winner?
Yeah.
It's the worst excuse since Eddie Murphy's Raw stand-up. It wasn't me.
What was his excuse?
That's exactly it. He goes on on social media and says, "My brain didn't even think like that. I was referring to Goldaniga from Como." And it's like, what? He's got nothing. He's
Makes no
what? No,
sense.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
You're talking shit. I'm sorry, but you're chatting absolute
For
shit.
me, that has to be the only explanation, like you said, but then it's also weird because he uses two Italian words and then he uses an English or American.
Yeah, because he's making racial puns like
Yeah.
Black Friday and all that nonsense we saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think you're right because it doesn't make any sense why he would say the player.
It's pathetic. And look, it's it's just ridiculous. The excuse is worse. I think what makes it worse is the excuse. You know, I understand that the N word is not an Italian word, but you do live on this planet and you are aware that that is a racial term. That is a racist term, right?
Mm.
So, and you were making it's gol is Italian, da is Italian, and you saw some, and you tried to use the N word to make it some sort of like a pun. It was just in bad taste and stupid, unnecessary, and gratuitous. But what's worse is I can't stand these non-apologies. I'm sorry if someone somewhere was offended. No, just, own it. Just own it. And Trevisani is a good commentator. He's one of the biggest names
He's a
in
great
Italian
commentator. Yeah,
football.
it's sad, which is what makes it sad. Yeah.
It's pathetic. It's just pathetic. Like these excuses that they come up with are even worse than the transgression. I think it's
No, it
just
is. It is.
it's just stop it.
Dog ain't my homework stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it literally is Eddie Murphy's skit in Raw. His stand up wasn't me, but I saw you wasn't me. Like what worst excuse ever. It's like stop it. Just take. Everyone can make mistakes, and
Well,
this
yeah.
just say you know what I had a mental meltdown. I said something really stupid. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. Finished.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's leave it at that. We'll be back later in the week for the Q&A. And so have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.